Hey everybody, welcome to episode 1 of Spike Drop, and I guarantee you I will call this podcast Tactical Crouch at least twice this episode. It's gonna happen. So
Yes.
Just be ready for it. We are a brand new competitive Valorant podcast. If you are following us from the Overwatch world, you'll know that we have a ton of experience in the competitive Overwatch scene. When Valorant was announced, we're like, are we gonna do it? And we're like, yeah, we're gonna do it. And that's what we're here doing today. Giving you episode number 1. Finally happened. We've been talking about this show, about 2 months. And
yeah, ever since Project A was kind of like teased and announced at Riot 100, it was like, oh, that looks interesting. Should we maybe think about this?
yeah, I think I remember at that point though, it was definitely people were I think playing this a little bit more akin to Overwatch than what it actually is.
Yeah.
Right? A very like ability based shooter versus like, I don't know, like it's almost like it's like Apex, I think, is how they like implemented abilities, right? You've got these like really cool abilities. They're definitely flavorful. They're definitely advantageous. You definitely don't want to not be using them. But it's not like Overwatch where every fight throws 4 ults and you're just like, let's go. So anyways, we're not going to talk about that yet. I'm KickedTripod, Yiska, and Volamel, all here chatting about Valorant for episode number 1. It's going to be awesome. Big thanks to Blue, who wrote the awesome intro music. Thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. It makes it sound great. And other than that, the only other housekeeping things we have is the RSS feed is still being established. So it's on Spotify already. I put up episode 0 last night to make sure that the feeds were getting established as quickly as possible. But it's going to take a little time to get on iTunes and those other places. And you can find the show on Twitch at twitch.tv/KickedTripod, Twitter at twitter.com/SpikeDrop, and our YouTube at bit.ly/SpikeDropYT. That will change once we get enough subs there. We're on a brand new YouTube channel, so that's going to change once we get more subscribers and can actually get a cosmetic URL. Whew. That's it. Did we go through that fast enough, Joe?
I think so. I'm, still my ears are still attuned to like listening to you rattle off a bunch of names, but
yes,
yeah, I'm here. I'm about it. I'm ready to chat some ish.
All right. Well, let's do it then, and let's talk about this first week. We're just gonna play that out until we're so sick of it. I can tell it already.
I don't think I'll ever get sick of that. That like, I think you talked about it yesterday. You kind of described it like the chugging, like, it's they knocked it out of the park with this.
Have you seen the Watchmen reboot on HBO?
No, I heard it's good though.
There's a scene, an interrogation scene. It's in all the trailers, so I'm not actually spoiling anything. But it's in all the trailers. And Trent Reznor does the soundtrack for this and a couple of other shows kind of like it, and he does just amazing things with like this driving kind of synthy half beat stuff, and it's exactly like that. I love it. It's so good.
That's really good.
So it's sick. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about. We do want to talk about the Valorant beta going live this week. The Valorant beta using drops eclipsed 1.73 million viewers. The number 1 most watched game was League of Legends with 1.74 million viewers on Twitch. So literally just about 10,000 behind breaking the all-time Twitch record. So Riot has both number 1 and number 2 spots there for that. Yiska, I'm going to ask you this first though, the drop system. So Riot and Twitch implemented a newer system. I don't know if I've seen any other big games do anything like this, where the only way to get access to the beta was to basically be whitelisted by Riot initially, or to get a drop from certain Valorant streams. And this was done essentially randomly. So you had a percentage chance. The more you watched, the more essentially rolls of the die you got. And it also raised your percentage as well. How did you like this type of system for getting access?
I think it was you got to compare it to general whitelisting and keys being given out and this type of stuff, right? Like that's the usual distribution system. Now in comparison, I think this is way more fun, creating way more engagement. Sadly, also, of course, creating exploitative systems where people were like mega bot farming it and selling them on eBay for like $150 or more, especially like the April 3rd keys were going for ridiculous amounts. And people will pay that. But I think that also is generally the case or the problem with keys, and arguably sharing keys around and sending those is even easier than sharing accounts around, where you can theoretically track IPs and make movements based on that. But as an engagement tool, actually fantastic idea to have Twitch as a distribution system, and also so free for Riot Games, right? Like, sure, there was probably something in the works with Twitch, and I don't know the economic realities of that deal, but in general, like, no influencer had to really be paid for these types of things. Like, the engagement was there, devs were talking to influencers, huge streams popping up, really involving the community in that regard. And I think in general, the system was pretty cool if we could figure out a system where it's not that exploitable. And also we are like this forced like a prisoner's dilemma type of situation where it's like, okay, so if everyone plays fair and we all only have one account, it's fair, and I don't need to have more accounts than one.
Yeah, right.
But I know that some of you will bot the ever-loving hell out of this. So in order to arms race that and equalize the field, I gotta play dirty in order to get there. And or a lot of people did. Basically, everyone that wanted to take this seriously as well, like especially like esports scenes. Of course, like the press and the influencer accounts were admittedly, of course, completely overflooded with applications. So if we can figure out a system how, and I don't know how that would go, maybe with two-factor authentication, only allowing for those Twitch accounts that have that to participate in these raffles, then maybe that's a better system. Not sure if it gets that many viewers then, but yeah, generally preferable to keys.
I kind of wish that the only change I think I would really like to see is to have them do like based on the age of your Twitch account and Riot account, so that it can't be an account that was just created yesterday, even if it's just as low as like a month. Honestly, you could do a couple weeks. Like, all you want to do is make sure that somebody who didn't create 10 accounts today is getting in before Joe, who's had an account for 5 years, right? So
it's actually longer, but just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Jeez, humble brag much. But yeah, like, I think that's the only thing I would have liked. I think it's really hard not to take these numbers as being extremely inflated, like the 1.73 million, because there are so many people botting. Twitch and Riot both insist that they're able to detect these bots. Which, I mean, I think like you should, if they're all coming from like the same IP, right? So like, I guess they should be able to, but then why don't
but even with that, it's still like a great sign for a game that's
totally. And it's like at one point, I checked this morning, is at 1.3 million still.
Yep.
As soon as they flipped it on.
Was just checking this morning. Yeah, they're still surpassing 1 million, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, as of right now, that's also true. 1.32 million.
That's insane. And we saw a lot of that excitement coming in after Project A was announced, and some of the gameplay went live. Everybody was super excited to get their hands on this, and that's carried over extremely well. I think the turnaround from when we saw Project A released and teased at Riot 100 to now has been insanely fast. Even the release date of summer 2020 is like the turnaround on this game has been impeccable, and I think that kind of relates to some of this, or correlates to some of this excitement and some of these crazy numbers. So it's a very fun time to be a Valorant fan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's starting strong. Although I will say this, I think me mostly, most of my competitive background comes from Blizzard games, and I very much remember a similar level of hype with Overwatch.
Oh yeah, only
first
watch
coming out.
I remember.
Yeah, and it was big, and I was in early, so and that was a traditional just white flag system, and the closed beta was very exclusive.
Yep.
Like super hard to get into. I remember that. This is nice. Chat's bringing up some good points about, what about people who are just creating an account to get into Valorant? And I think it's fair. I think there's far more people who are botting and selling and doing nefarious things to get in than there are first-time accounters who need to get into the beta in the first week or 2 weeks that aren't going to play otherwise. Yep. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited to see.
There's not a perfect system, it's all hypothetical.
Do you know what else is really great though? Maybe this hasn't been the status for your games, but they've been really wholesome.
They have been better than I expected, but you still get a lot of the same kind of CS, like either nobody's talking or like everybody's talking. I haven't gotten too many like just obnoxious people, but I'm willing to bet once the game progresses, give it a one.
Totally.
Give it a month,
Overwatch did the same thing, right? And every brand new game, everybody is so excited to kind of be in there, and there's no ranking, so it doesn't really matter if you're winning or losing that much. The frustration levels are relatively low. People are far more willing to be like, oh man, you should have done that. I'm like, oh, sorry, it's my third game. Oh yeah, no problem.
But it's also,
dude.
you know why you probably know why you're doing bad, and it's also provable. It's like, we have a scoreboard. Not something that Overwatch has. I can be sucking at Overwatch, but have a bunch of gold medals, and that tells me, well, I'm doing something remotely okay. This game's like, no, I'm bottom fragging.
Yeah.
I am -5. I have no money. I feel bad. The game's telling me I'm doing bad. The scoreboard says I'm doing bad. I must be doing bad. I have enough evidence to prove to myself that I am doing poorly.
That doesn't really sway a lot of people's ego. You will find later on.
It doesn't, but I think it's much better than the game telling you, well, maybe you're doing okay. I don't know. You have gold. You have gold cart time.
Mm-hmm.
So are you doing that poorly, or is it your mercy?
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We're in the honeymoon period. Enjoy 100%. It.
Yes.
I think Overwatch, I remember it staying like that through beta until we saw competitive mode come out.
Yep.
And then competitive is where people started to get competitive, which makes sense. Yeah. And it started turning into little jerks. Little old jerks.
Yeah, but in a sense, I think that also needs to happen in terms of like, I wouldn't want a ranked experience without people taking it seriously. Now, of course, ideally, we all remain very serious and very nice to each other, but I'd rather have people try and get a little ruffled than like completely troll the entire time and not have a competitive ranked experience at all.
Speaking of, if you think that this game is going to be like absent of one tricking, you're wrong. If you think this game's going to be absent of smurfing, you're wrong. That's just like an intangible in every game, especially if there's characters. So
100%.
For those that were new to Overwatch and are, coming over to Valorant, that's going to happen. You're going to get the Omen mains. You're going to get the people who insta-lock Jet. That's going to happen. Be prepared. For anybody who's naive enough to think that isn't going to happen, you've been warned.
So the question is, are there Torbjorn heroes of
I don't think so.
I don't, and that's the thing. Like,
which is good.
Is one tricking a problem?
It's also not a problem. It's not a problem because at least for a long time until the player base with like utility functionality and how much value we get out of utility has caught up. And I honestly think this might be 1 or 2 years in the making. Most of the power comes from the weapon kit, and therefore what, like, hero doesn't matter. Like, you won't be mad at someone picking Jet necessarily because like a lot of the power level is just distributed there. In other games, you absolutely are losing games if you're playing a completely countered hero into a counter comp, right?
Yep.
So in that regard, one tricks don't feel like a big problem.
At least not yet, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll have to see. I think there's definitely some heroes that have kind of some like scary abilities that
Sure.
we need to watch, like Sage having a res, right? Like how impactful is resing in a game like this versus Overwatch, right? Blizzard still is like constantly balancing this resurrection idea, and so they're bringing that in, and you have some like utilities in the sense that you have multiple players who have their versions of essentially smokes, right? Who can, you know, lock down a specific pathway and break vision on that. And so you're seeing that, and there's definitely like some compositional aspects I could see coming from that. Is like, yes, we need to make sure that we don't choose every hero except for the 3 that have really good like line of sight abilities.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, in chat saying it right now, it's like it's really, you know, 65% aim, and that's kind of refreshing, except for Mercy mains.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, and you know, those tank players.
Sure, those Winstons over there, and those Reinhardts. Let's so there is one thing that was kind of interesting. So we're just talking about botters. The Valorant team did ban closed beta accounts for sellers and botters.
Mm-hmm.
So don't do that. They didn't explain specifically what the threshold of botting was, but my understanding from a few people I've talked to was it's for people who are making hundreds of accounts, not for like, oh, I made 5 kind of thing. Is like people who are significantly tipping the scales. And taking out exorbitant amount of those beta keys. So
true.
Good to see them on that, but here's the concerning thing. We've got to talk about something bad on the show, otherwise it's not a podcast by us.
Yes.
So the Valorant team did fine and banned their first cheater on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And it was posted out by Arkham, who is the programmer and anti-cheat lead for Riot in Valorant. And he did go into a bit of detail and talk about, you know, what they're doing to combat cheating. But anti-cheat was it was brought up in like their initial launch developer Q&A trailer, right? Like that 3-minute long thing about addressing cheaters. So, Joe, are you like at all concerned that 48 hours in, we're already banning cheaters?
No. And I think this kind of comes with the idea that because the developers are so like entrenched with the system, and they've developed it and it's, you know, foolproof in their eyes, you can't account for every single possibility, whereas leaving it open to the public that, you know, or that small community that wants to kind of like break things and try to find a way to get a leg up on the competition, they'll find a way. I don't think there's a way to create a foolproof system, even though it sounds like Riot has put a ton of and invested a ton of time into developing their Fog of War kind of system, where I'm not even going to speak on the details because I know very little about it, but I know that it's relatively in depth. It forces you to restart your computer when you install the game just to make sure that everything is copacetic. So it's the ingenuity of the public. They're going to break things. They're going to do things you didn't expect or you didn't think possible, maybe have overlooked. It sounds like they've done as much as they could. Maybe they can refine it even more, but I don't think this is worrisome. In most games, I don't think it's insanely populated with cheaters for the most part. And I'd say in most games and most FPS, that is. I know that there are a few games that have some problems, but for the most part, I think most people are genuinely playing their games. I don't think they're like scripting all the time. Like there are always going to be the exceptions to that rule, but I think for the
Yeah,
most
see what's
part,
in.
you should be okay.
So they did say, so Arkham did say that the fog of war is working. So the general concept of the fog of war is that the server dictates if there's a chance that you will be seeing a player or have the potential of seeing a player, and if they don't, the characters actually don't show up on your client at all. So you can't like wall hack through or see enemies on the other side of the map because there's no chance of you to see in there. So that's the concept of fog of war. I don't want to butcher it too much, but that's kind of the idea. They also said that there's no silver bullet when it comes to like preventing hacking. Like the difference is that they've got a really stout anti-cheat system in place that they can update quickly, that they can recognize cheats quickly, and that they can punish players quickly. And I think that that's what
that's the thing. Yeah.
That's the
important.
realistic take on this.
Yes.
The concern should not be like, oh, there's cheaters in a game, because I don't know
No.
if it's possible to make a cheatless
game without cheaters.
No.
Exactly.
Because
So the fact that they're on it early and we're in closed beta where people are still getting whitelisted in and they're already on the ball, that's a fantastic sign. That should give people that want to take this game seriously a nice sigh of relief to say, oh, okay, cool. They're already on the ball. They're already removing people that are trying to ruin this game. So
yeah,
it's fantastic
it's
sign.
Classic hero's dilemma where it's like the hero has to be so much stronger than the villain because the hero also has to protect the people. The bad guy can just blow up a city and be fine with it. By the same token, the hacker doesn't have to care about privacy settings and like data laws in like 120 different countries, and he just does, and then you gotta arm against that and gotta be better down the line. The bee's knees in cheat protection is you identify the cheat, you roll out something that detects the cheat, you hardware ban the cheater. Right? Those are, and the quicker the response time is between these steps, the better your anti-cheat is. Because let's be honest, one to even like, let's say 20,000 games being ruined by a cheater is actually not that big of a problem in the grand scheme of things. Yep. If you then let it fester over a month, that is a problem for your competitive game.
Yes.
And that is also, from what I've seen like on social media feeds currently, a problem for Overwatch. Or has always been a problem in CSGO, right? Like
and
even
Warzone.
on...
Well, CSGO, though, they have the Overwatch system, right? Which is confusing.
Yes.
So like the Overwatch system basically lets people, I know everyone's like, why are they talking about bringing Overwatch to CSGO? Yeah, right. It essentially lets community members, like qualified community members, look at VODs that are reported for suspect of activity and weigh in. So maybe that's an additional solution on top of that. Though I would expect
and it's something that Riot's used before.
I also would be surprised if Riot wasn't much more lenient on cheats in beta, so that they can, like, not in letting them like go or whatever, but like seeing what people are coming up with in beta, so that when you have a launch, you have a smooth experience, kind of thing.
So to kind of like let them continue cheating to kind of refine the system.
I wouldn't say like,
okay, you can keep going for a little bit, but once this goes live,
I wouldn't say let them keep cheating as much as I would like maybe not banning as quickly as like, or like as harshly as you would, or maybe I
think that's kind of 500 IQ. That's possible. I like where your head's at.
I also am just a forehead.
No, I genuinely think that might be a good idea, that instead of just immediately permanently banning them, like, okay, you've shown that you want to, poke and break the system, try and continue to do that for me for a little bit, but when summer rolls around, you're dead. You gotta go.
It's a red sparrow.
That's a fun thing. If people remember back, I think this is a story that completely was buried over the years, but like in closed beta, I definitely remember there was a guy called Yang. And he developed the first aimbot for Overwatch. And miraculously, he was never banned and always had like this guy made like a 10 million different IO games that all popped the hell off and stuff like that. Just like a whiz kid. It is now like he also is like he was a doctor or something at the same time. Like just like a genius.
Mhm.
And Blizzard didn't ban him. And we always wondered, wait, like in Pro Talk, people were like shit talking him. Why is he not banned? Blah, blah, blah. Blizzard people in there. How is his account not banned? Probably because he said, this is what I used, and I bet I can.
He's giving the information over to the developers, not
Yes.
maliciously cheating, but saying, hey, there's a security issue. This is how I did it. Please fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds like the best of both worlds. You get to stomp on noobs
100%.
and
they're like, okay, fine.
you just
Stop,
have to be,
but
you just have to be the
keep going.
best at it. You have to be the best at finding those hacks, and then be willing to
Mhm.
talk about it and not sell it
Yes.
for, probably tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how some of these guys get monetized.
Yeah.
Like
True.
Mhm.
there's a reason why not everyone's a white hat hacker, and I'll tell you this: a lot of it has to do with money.
Money. Yeah.
It's not nearly as lucrative.
God, no.
Yeah. Anyways, it's I think people are overreacting a little bit in the expectation that since they're taking cheating very seriously and implementing heavy anti-cheat solutions
Yes.
as some sort of a statement as there will not be cheating in Valorant, which is not.
It's hyperbolic, guys. Like, there's always going to be somebody that breaks the system.
Yeah.
The fact that they're quickly and heavy-handedly approaching this should be good enough.
Yeah.
It's a good sign.
Anyways, it's a thing. It's a thing. It happened. Relax. It's not the end of the world. But they do need to like stick to their commitment to
and I believe them.
dealing with cheaters. Well, I mean, it's like, I don't know, trust until they prove that they're not worthy to be trusted,
Exactly. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, 100%.
like
Go
we
for
did
it.
with Overwatch for 3 years. So
Hey,
yikes. Last, just overall thoughts on the beta here before we kind of get moving into esports. I mean, how's it been for you guys just as players? You're not here to analyze anything or sit on cheaters or anything. You're just, are you having fun? Are you playing the game? Are you waking up wanting to play it, going to bed with crosshairs in your eyes?
I will say that I'm pleasantly surprised at how smooth things have gone. Like John, I come from a long history of trying to play Blizzard games on release and trying to play their betas, and don't always go well, especially immediately. And it seems like Riot is on the ball with their launch. I expect their launch to be very clean. Probably very little issues with how the beta has gone so far, with how many people are in the beta. Doesn't really feel like it's closed at this point. It kind of feels like a soft open beta almost, or soft close, I should say. But game's super fun. Game's very clean, very polished for something that, isn't supposed to be released yet, but feels like a fully, like, I'd pay money to play this game, even though it's going to be free to play. But I would gladly play money for a game that's polished, and it's super fun. It feels like CS, but it doesn't. It's like a fresh enough take on it that it's more interactive. It feels like it's not just the same character. Each character feels unique and different, and feels like they want to play different roles almost. Where
it lets you kind of like, for me, I'm not a fragger. I'm not a flutter. I'm not like somebody who's just like, give me the strongest gun that's the most mechanic rewarding and let me go type of person. I'm like, you know what? I can hit some shots, but I prefer to stay back and help you hit more shots. I just like, I'm a little bit more of that type of player. And so like having players or agents that let you kind of and play to a little bit more cautious play style without being a little bit is, I think, great. And so like, I really like that aspect of it. I've had fun. I've played, I think, probably about 10, 12 games in the 4 days it's been out. The launch experience has been really smooth. Day one, they had some like friends list issues, and chat issues, and they had some like they had to pause drops for a few hours. But like,
I didn't stop you from playing the game.
Not only that, they launched it from home. They launched that game. They launched that beta and supported it from home, which makes you wonder
That's insane.
why we ever go to an office again. Maybe we don't.
It's very impressive. Again, coming from like Diablo 3, right? Where it was like error 44 or whatever it was.
For like
it was just like 2 days of not being
straight
able to play.
live.
It's just like sweet,
on the live
I guess.
version. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited for this game. I'm very excited for the esports side of things. The game's very fun, feels fresh. There's already like rumors of new characters or new agents coming out. So yeah, this is gonna be big. I'm very excited. Very excited.
So you
Confession time.
Yeah.
Confession. Are you a Dirty Sage main?
The first 2 hours, I was disappointed.
Really?
Yeah. I was
With
like, I was
what?
playing CS. This is not sufficiently different. It's like sort of like the song that you hear the first time. It's like,
you're not super into it, and then you're
that's
like,
what the world is listening to, dude.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, really? And then just like, you know, like social pressure or whatever, or like, you know, it comes on the radio and you're just gaming away and the social experience makes it fun. And then it's like, wait, yeah, like I kind of get it now. Like, okay, so these abilities are different and this is the setup and these are the cool quirks of it. And like, this doesn't have a skybox, so maybe I can lob something over and these types of things. And then it started developing. And now I actually feel like, okay, this is because it's often like the song that you hear and it pops off hard. The first time you listen to it, that thing is boring within a week.
yes.
The thing that you have to acquire the taste, that lasts for a long time. So now I feel much more secure in saying, okay, even as a player, I think no doubt I'll have fun watching the esport. Just like the type of game that it is, and
like even if it was just like CS, maybe let's just say this is a CS clone. There's nothing different. It just looks a little bit more cartoony and more anime, right? You'd still probably enjoy watching the esport, though.
Yes, I would. Yeah.
So now it's just like a slight, you know. I think I'll get probably, you know, rolled over the coals in saying this, but like a slight different version of CS makes it even more interesting because those tiny nuances at like a base level get so astronomical at the professional level. So I think it's fun.
The jury's out, right,
one.
on how much this forms into CS versus how much this forms. I think what we saw with the developer team taking on some of the streamers, the loaded GG guys.
Oh yeah.
What you saw is a lot of the synergy that is possible that you don't see right now. Right now you see a bunch of players going in and kind of like, not that they're not trying to have teamwork, but there's just no like expectation.
It's very baseline teamwork. Like, hey, we're going to this site. Hey, we're looking at this angle. Hey, could you smoke here? Not let's combo this ability with this ability, or this ult with this ult, or oh, I'm going to use this ult. Now you can use this ability, and that should give you more of a, you know, higher % success rate on that. It's very just baseline. It's very
the idea, and I hate to kind of keep going back to Overwatch analogies, but when Overwatch first came out, there was no such thing as like Zaryaing into a Hanzo ult. Like that wasn't just like an immediately understood thing from silver and above. Like that, if Zarya throws the ult and you're Hanzo, you throw your bow. Like that's what you do. And in the same way here, we saw the devs kind of pick up on some of these different synergies between abilities and ultimates in ways that just the CSGO pros guys couldn't do it. And they were really good at aiming too. Like there was a lot of good former CSGO pros on that development team. And so that didn't help them. But just from the teamwork alone, like it was just, they were playing an entirely different game. And you could tell that the vision for the game is nowhere near where we're at from like how players are playing the game yet.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be exciting to see. And we're going to see how much of that is going to continue to, you may find out that the needle gets kind of like pulled the other way where, you know what? It turns out abilities aren't that important, and the best way to play the game is every man for himself. And then it becomes much more like CSGO. Whereas, if it's a very ability and comboing abilities and using them together and coordinating, it'll be less like that. So we'll just have to see.
To be fair, like at the highest level, Cisco is still very much like coordinated, like within a second, dropping pixel perfect smokes and Molly executes, flashing someone in with like almost like frame perfect peaks and everything like that. Angling, like this is all still very team focused. I think there's even more strategical depth towards that in VALORANT. I think we'll also, I mean, this is not a discussion we have to have down the line, but there's a threat of like oversaturating or like going too wild on the abilities and changing how all of that goes. I think drafting will be very important at some point because like you're locked in. It's not Overwatch where you can switch heroes within rounds. So if you have like more defensive minded characters, like at least that's our conception currently, for instance, of someone like Cypher, then do you need to have more attack around defense rounds secured on specific maps or all these considerations? I think those are very different than in CS. Like just like what happens pre-game, right? And how much of that is determining the outcome of the match. I think that's going to be very different. And then we'll see what kind of mechanics are being added with new agents. I think there's a point to be made that that we are going to see a high frequency of new agents. So maybe, I'm not sure if they're going to League of Legends it up, where they had like every 2 weeks they had a new hero or something at the start.
Oh, when League started, it was insane. I remember jumping in like when I think it was when Xin Zhao was being released, and I remember watching Freak talk about like the champion spotlight, and then Vlad was like next week, and then like I don't know, I can't remember who was after that, but yeah, they were cranking them out like week by week. And they were always notably like pretty ridiculous on release. So we'll have to see if that transitions to Valorant as well.
Yeah, I think they won't move that quickly. I think we're still significantly going to have more heroes than in Overwatch.
Oh,
even at the height.
Well,
I think like realistic is like every 2 months, maybe a new agent.
Yep.
Stuff like that. And if we keep the concept of utility over actual weapons that you get with your kit, then I think we're fine, depending on what the utility is.
And I think that lends itself to creating new heroes because it isn't so ability focused like in Overwatch, where you need to figure out, okay, how do these abilities synergize with how the game's being played? Like, what do I want this character to be? The baseline for Valorant always is you have a gun, use the gun. You don't need the utility. It's actively a choice to use the utility. You have your signature ability, which everybody gets baseline, that is either on a cooldown or you earn it through some way. But you don't even have to have the abilities. That's an active choice to pick them. You should pick them. I'm not saying don't buy them. By all means, please, Phoenix, buy your flashbangs, but you have to choose to buy them. Whereas in Overwatch, you get them intrinsically and you have to find usefulness from them. Whereas in Valorant, you have your Vandal, you shoot them in the face. Cool. I did good.
Yeah. And we do know that they're going to have 12 agents. I'm going to keep saying heroes for a while. I apologize. 12 agents at launch and 4 maps. So I believe we've got 3 and 10 right now. We have 3 and 10 or 3 and 11. So we're going to see 1 to 2 more agents before the official launch. And we'll just have to see from there.
Yep.
Cool. Do you want to talk about esports?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about esports. So kind of going back to the beta thing, though, this is kind of interesting. So Nadeshot was asked not to stream Valorant on Tuesdays. LCS and LEC owners felt that the alpha was supposed to be an organization-free alpha test, but Nadeshot and some other key people in different organizations got access, and that was upsetting owners of other teams and management in the scene because they felt like they were getting a leg up on the competition in who to sign and building out their rosters. Is this a big deal?
I don't think he should have even been excluded. I don't think it's a big deal at all to, like, you were not going to see anyone in, like, okay, I think the argument is that they've that he had access long before even this beta test, and he was part of like alphas already before that thing. Now, then you can think about the player profiles. What kind of a player do you want? Maybe this guy already knew I want CS squad. Like, if he somehow now gets to sign, like, he sees the game, thinks, okay, this is CSGO. I want the most hype and probably also a very good team at the start. And next week we find out that Ska and like Shroud and these guys were already signed to like streaming contracts or whatever. And they are actually going to compete with that. Fair enough. I don't see that coming though. And you will also see, I remember like very early in Overwatch meeting someone that was called G2 Misty or something, playing with
they were
G2 Numlocked.
Yeah.
And that's a 50% hit chance, but these guys were actually signed to G2 at the time. And in my mind was like, okay, they're name faking, right? Like this is ridiculous. No, well, it's actually the case. Okay. On one of them, of course, like for Valorant listeners, Numlock then went on to become an Overwatch League player, so the highest level of competition there, and maybe not like an absolute best player that was in the game, but high level, and definitely also very early in Overwatch became one of the best players, dominating with some of his teams. So to a degree, I see where it comes from, also like the experience that these owners have in these situations, but like I'm not sure if it's really such a big deal. And the basic idea is like Nadeshot is an influencer that made these like is the head of 100 Thieves. And if you don't want that to be a competitive advantage, very easy, get your own influencers into these situations where they can also report back in some regard. Now, of course, keep in mind, Nadeshot most definitely also signed an NDA, so probably not able to communicate as much to his organization as well. Of course, able to make strategic decisions based on that. Maybe like if you already know this is a banger esport, then maybe you don't take the gamble on some of these franchise leagues that we're seeing around the world and don't buy in because you know the next big thing is coming. I can see all of that. That's a competitive advantage. Get an influencer on your team or become one. And then you're also getting into these situations. For me, it's just like a competitive advantage that it's inherent to 100 Thieves. And if you don't like it, develop yourself into that position.
So some other, and here's the thing. So I think I take it slightly different. And just if you have organizations that are invested into the highest levels of your competitive League of Legends or just Riot Games in general, and they're the part of your franchising system, just give them access. Just give them all access. Why not? It's like 30 people. Is there like, I don't know, like give them all access or don't. Like if you're worried about the competitive integrity of this thing. So, and Nadeshot 2 probably knew that he would be making some trade-offs going into a C-level role in a esports organization, which we'll call an esports organization, a content creation organization, and a lifestyle clothing organization, because that's what they do. They make content, they play esports, and then they also do a lot of stuff with merch and branding. So there's trade-offs that come with that. A lot of perks, but there are some downsides. And if it comes down to worrying about the competitive integrity of your upcoming esports, just treat them all the same.
Yeah.
Or give all the shitty CEOs who have never played any of these shooter games before, give them access, see what they do with
it. The thing is, then stuff is going to leak. That is like because CEOs are the type that then will not honor their NDA and will delegate certain tasks within their organization, and then it will somehow seep through what kind of, like, someone like the CEO gets access, looks at the game. Many CEOs don't even play games. Let's be honest, but
most of them don't.
Like, then just goes like, okay, we got this kid that was a former pro player. Maybe come into my office and play this. What kind of a player do I want? And then this guy tells his girlfriend, and then it just spreads like everywhere, just like through. It's just how every league
Your
works.
example
It's
is
so hard
unbelievable
to.
because in this one, the esports kid has a girlfriend.
True. But it's post-Korea where he's making the fat bucks at an organization, right?
Yep. That's fair. Fair enough. Korea, it's the other way around. Like, which one? Which girlfriend? So, geez. All right. Anyways, I don't know. I think it's kind of overblown a little bit. I really hope that. Well, I don't hope this. I'd be very surprised if 24 hours of access. Because they basically asked him not to stream for one day. He could still play the game. He could still do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so.
That was weird. Yeah.
Yep. Whatever. He handled it about as good as Nadeshot can, I think.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't like it. They asked me to, but I'm doing it. And
yeah.
All right. And we're moving on. Let's talk about real esports though. And that is, so the Esports Observer, not the esports, just Esports Observer reported that Riot is already approaching tournament organizers and esports organizations about the future plans for Valorant esports. Yiska, what do we know?
Okay, so I mean, like that. No, they're not talking. They've literally invited. We just talked about Nate Shot. Like, they're talking, of course, that it's.
They're talking about esports.
Wow, what an absolute nothing burger of a report. But okay, of course, this is nothing that I'm so secure about that I would report, because in that case, I would also feel a duty towards my employer to not talk about this here, but actually write a report about it. But there's definitely like people that talked about, like, I'm not sure if they talked to devs or whatnot, but that we're going to have in the first couple of months an open circuit in terms of like who can do those events and whatnot. In that regard, maybe not that different from what Overwatch had. Of course, like this is all determined by the current global situation. If LAN events are ever planned or whatever, like ideally you want like gaming conventions to have like tournaments with like invitationals or like open brackets there, like at a Gamescom or something like that, and then bring esports to the masses that way, and then get it onto these IEM circuits, like, you know, the entire MTG crew that with like both ESL as well as DreamHack, those running tournaments, Face It, whatnot. I think that is actually who they're talking to, and that is the important part, that we're going down that route. And I also think it's absolutely necessary that we do this. Now, here's the distinct difference that needs to happen over what Overwatch did to these tournament organizers. Because the strength of an open system is the following. You hedge your bets with these tournament organizers. They are in direct competition to deliver the best entertainment product, fighting for every viewer with their competition. We see it now in CS, even with like competing formats with like Flashpoint and ESL and whatnot. Like, especially when you have on the same weekend, you want to draw the attention over the other. This creates competition and forces them to refine your broadcast product the best way Valorant can be broadcasted as an esports for you. You have no risk there. All you probably need to do is tell these tournament organizers, for X amount of time, you have a tournament license, and we're doing nothing there. Now, here, that's the one thing that Overwatch didn't, in terms of like, yes, they probably gave like ESL assurance, okay, you're going to host these amounts of tournaments, but the regulations were ridiculous. Actually, positively, like, nobody can trial and error. Nobody can hedge their bets in terms of what works, what not. I was sitting at Takeover 1, like, being asked, like, dude, I know you're sitting in a gaming bar, but like, you're drinking a beer on camera. It's like, come on, man. Are we really helicopter parenting broadcasts already, like in 2016 when this was a thing. So the best thing Riot can do is mostly be hands off and just like not by intentional design or intelligent design, if you want, but by natural selection, let these organizations figure it out for you, like it was the case for League of Legends for Royale. If I was Riot, I would go a full year at least before I even think about creating my own leagues or whatnot. Franchising, like get out of here with that for that long, and let others test the system for you with no risk of your own. Of course, you can give them a little bit of money here, like stimulate the competition, reward certain organizers for doing a great show, assure them that maybe once you have a league format, your off season is then even past like you start your involvement. Okay, the off season is yours because you showed loyalty towards us. This is the way to go about creating these esports scenes where it's like we're hedging our bets. We're getting the best creative minds that have put esports on for many of them like almost 20 years now, right? And then you go in, you take the best ideas from everyone, and you create your esports, and then you have something rigid that lasts, like the LCS and like LEC and LCK and whatnot.
So I'll play devil's advocate because I mostly agree with everything that you're saying. My only worry is that, or not my only worry, but a worry that I already kind of feel is we're kind of past the age of third-party tournaments, right? It seems like every esport these days is developer run. Yes, in CSGO, we have a great functioning third-party system. It's not developer run. You have your majors, that's great, but you have people like FaZe, you have people like ESL, you have Flashpoint, you have all of these separate entities to put on and test systems and, you know, try to break the rules and create new formats. Is there enough of that these days to kind of benefit Valorant in that same way, so you can test the breadth of all different kinds of systems? We have a double elimination, we have a single elimination, we have GSL groups, is there enough of that now with people like MLG gone, with people like NGE back in the day with Overwatch gone? There's not a lot of those people left to do that. Is that worry you at all? Does that bother you? Do you hope that Riot and Valorant give some of these smaller tournament organizers maybe a little bit of a stimulus, let's say, to try and help test these systems so that they maybe one day can rally and kind of rope all the things together like they did with LCS and create their own developer run system in tournaments or whatever they decide to do? Does that bother you at all? Is that something that you're concerned with?
I think a lot of the people that are still around are still not signed to these huge developers. Like Sundance Di Giovanni is still independent.
100%.
And if he
out there making control.
I'm not sure if you can like convince him to run entire circuits again, because my understanding now is that they, like, especially like Adam Apicella, I think is his name.
Yep.
Like they are running, for instance, Esports Engine is running like tournaments like the homestands in Overwatch.
Right. They're running
CDL.
Events rather than putting it. Hopefully I'm understanding the product correctly. They're running events rather than putting on tournaments.
Yeah. But I feel like that's already the lion's share of the work, and you could slap a brand of them on them if they actually
possibly,
if there's actually an opportunity for that, and they would have free reign from what I can tell in NA for the most part, because the MLGs are gone, right? So of course IEM also has like global offices now, so maybe they can compete a little bit on American soil. But like, I mean, if this game is at all like going to be what it's like in CS, like Brazil has a huge audience there, especially like if some of the Brazilian superstar players transition to that game, maybe we see some transition there. I think Asia is going to be nuts, so it's definitely like maybe OGN you can get on board there, so you have that continent unlocked. Like then you're competing against Africa TV and all these stations there. You can get the Chinese broadcast companies on there. It's not necessary. I think it's more like what about NA at the moment with these production companies? Not necessarily that we totally don't have these. And as it shapes up, like especially the Asian crowd, for me is like something I'm very cognizant of, because in my mind it's like CSGO never popped off because there's sudden attack. But what if we unify these universes and we can actually have that? And then you want something like the LCK there. And I think like the pre-established connections in League of Legends with like OGN and whatnot. I'm not sure who's running LCK now.
Just Riot,
actually don't know.
I'm pretty sure. It's just all in-house with Riot.
Okay, yeah. But like these production companies all over the world still exist. So let's just try, and then they can also develop local optima. So like they can customize to what's their local needs. Because honest to God, I don't think you want a global league. You want occasional global competition.
You want international competition. You don't want everybody trying to travel everywhere like they're trying to do with the Overwatch.
Yes,
like,
and
I think that's
I'm not saying this.
There.
Yeah, I'm not saying this because I expect next year to have the next global pandemic.
Yeah,
this shuts everything down. But because I think it's currently with the air travel that we have, like maybe one day when we fly into the stratosphere and you can like fly from Las Vegas to, I don't know, like Australia or like China within 3 hours or 2 hours. Okay, we can talk about that then. Then it's a different form of travel. But like currently, it's such a draining process. And if you have like home and away games, like league type of scenarios, that's not cool. Maybe a global circuit, like it feels more sustainable. I hear less issues from CS players traveling the globe, for instance, because they can also decide for themselves. Do we want this? Do we need the off time here? Like these are the types of things that a global circuit allows you to do, and that a league doesn't necessarily do. So I think generally, there are definitely already these production companies globally in place, and if we optimize and tinker and take a little bit of the best, but also keep it towards like the culture of esports that the specific countries or places have, then like League, I'm not sure, like a lot of viewers I expect aren't too accustomed with League of Legends, because I think maybe I'm misjudging, but a lot of the a lot of spike drop viewers probably either come from Overwatch, of course, or like from CS because of the similarity of the game. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with what Riot has been able to do, is that they have basically like 3 large soon franchise leagues. 2 of them are already franchised. The third one is coming. The one is the LCK in South Korea. One is the LCS in North America, and one is the LEC in Europe. And then is LPL franchised? I'm not even sure. That would be in China.
Won't comment, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay, and then even within these or outside these, you have like cool local scenes with like still pretty cool viewership, tier 2 systems being engaged there. Like you can follow the narratives of these upcoming players, and all of that is like a gigantic organic machinery that just grew, and they're building upon this pre-existing infrastructure, and therefore it could, like, on the principle of localism, work that way, and everyone could just still be enjoying Valorant, just in a little bit of different way that makes more sense to their respective cultures. And I think that is the way to growth, honestly.
Yeah, it's something that Riot has experience with as well. Obviously, looking at the history of League of Legends, that was, part and parcel of the case. You had champions. And what OGN was producing in Korea pretty early on, you had TSM and a lot of the MLGs, adopting some of the same tournament formats that they use in other games for North America. You had ESL operating in Europe, testing all of these different formats and figuring out what the best one was. And then 3 years down the line, or was it 3 years or was it 2 years? When did LCS start? What was like the LCS era? Was that 3 years in? I want to say it was 3.
Yeah, Feels like that.
It feels 3. I could be wrong in that. Hopefully, the chat doesn't rip my head off. But
Rip his head off, chat. Do it.
they have history on planting the seeds and then harvesting the crops and then building something that kind of stands the test of time. You have a track record of success with that. And I think that's going to be refined. I think there was some missteps on how that was all done and written, and how it was grown. And esports is obviously much bigger now, so I think that can be done much more safely and probably at a higher scale. I don't think quicker is necessarily better, because we've seen what happens when you're too quick and things get a little too messy and you still don't know exactly what's going on. So you need that growth time, but it's a measure of scale at when you kind of want to harvest the scene and kind of collect everything and then do everything in-house, which again, I'm of the assumption that it doesn't have to be in-house, but I think for business, it's probably better to have it in-house. Like if I'm Riot Games, I probably say, hey, why don't I just do this in-house? Why don't I just create my own thing and then stop everybody else? It's good for me, bad for everybody else, but it is what it is, I guess. It's also the case. Safe.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is safe because even if one of your scenes completely crashes, there's no interest anymore. Maybe a local developer has brought out their next installment of a game and it culturally just pops off. The system isn't dead because of that.
Yep.
If tomorrow an Overwatch 2.0 clone comes out, it's much better in China. There are then 4 or 5 Chinese teams that don't have a support system there or no interest in the game anymore. That invalidates the entire idea of the league and is very easily able to kill the entire project, not just that within there, because the entire structure is based on that. So by localizing these things, you also become much more resistant to these crisis situations, like we're, for instance, seeing now. Of course, it's so to explain, because those tournaments or these leagues are localized, a lot of these teams are in one city somewhere in the world. And what that leads to now is they can just play each other from their home apartments, have great ping, there's no transport issue, we can just play online, stuff like that.
Yep.
Okay, you might say, oh, well, Yiska, but this is such a black swan event. This is not going to happen again. Once we're out of this, fine, fair. But these structures make you more resistant to any kind of unforeseen events. That is the point. You are or dare I say, anti-fragile towards these black swan events that you cannot possibly foresee. And while other leagues are crumbling because of it, you can at least maintain your level or only maybe slightly go down. But because everyone else, like sports, is crapping out, your individual value goes up to the point where the LCS and I think LCK, League of Legends, is now negotiating or has negotiated a deal with ESPN.
Yep.
Right? Yep. So they have proven that for them, the entire thing actually went down very well. Why? Because they were compartmentalized in their scenes, and it solved certain issues that also in other Fallout events will always make them much more resistant to these scenarios.
Yep. I think in general, as franchise systems progress in terms of these big developer run, tournament or league structures, you're going to see more of that, how you put it, anti-fragileness with how the system is created, because I don't think this is a black swan event. I think a global pandemic is the outlier here, but geopolitics are messy. Things can happen.
Yes.
Wars can start, conflicts can arise where, volcanoes can erupt and air travel's canceled. The world is a very bizarre place. So one little move and your whole tournament goes debunk. And if your tournament goes debunk and that's the only thing you have, like Yiska is saying, the game goes debunk.
Yeah.
So when you have multiple different, tournaments and leagues and this, show matches and nothing, it's just one little switch turned off instead of the whole grid, the whole power mainframe being turned off and the city's dark. You don't want that. You want an unfortunate circumstance happens and this tournament can't happen, but your game isn't just dead. The competitive scene for that game isn't just put on hold for 2 months while fallout from some weird power plant that had a tsunami hit it or some sort of earthquake happened. All of these things are accessible and very, very likely to happen.
Just straight up Michael Bay moving us right now.
It's bound to happen at some point.
He's like,
yes, esports event canceled by earthquake.
Tsunami into power plant cancels esports. Got it. That's the one.
It's gonna happen at some point, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like it doesn't mean because you regionalize the sports interest is regionalized.
Mm-hmm.
Like I read something like LCK, so the Korean league has 5 times as much international viewership as regionally, and like League of Legends is still by far the biggest game in South Korea in like their Pishibang play rates, like over 60-50%. Will be interesting to see how that works out with Valorant, by the way. But yeah, like you can have global interest without necessarily being. That's the beauty of esports, the connectivity towards other cultures. That yes, we don't speak the same language. We don't all speak English, but the language that we speak is esports, and that is the beauty of it, where we can bond over these concepts or these personalities, these plays, these flavorful narratives that transcend cultures and can really dig them without necessarily having to be in the same room.
Yeah.
I'll put.
It's great. I'm excited for the future of Valorant esports. I think we all are. I think that there's we've got the 100 Thieves creator tournament coming up, right? Where it's 8 content creators creating their own teams.
Yeah, I'm slightly skeptical. I'm waiting to see. There is a weekly tournament coming up next week that I'll be paying attention to, but we'll have to see what 100 Thieves goes on and does. Hopefully it is like super competitive and we have some established teams. I know that T1 is out there, recruiting some people familiar with Overwatch, AZK and CSGO obviously is signed with them now, so that'll be exciting. I'm sure there'll be more signings to come. But we'll see with 100 Thieves. I'll be paying attention to it, but I'm slightly skeptical.
And this is something that I think honestly, I think needs to happen.
Of course,
for early esports.
You want the creators to be celebrated. You need that content.
People with the platform to bring their viewers to gain interest in the game, and then they find the other people that they really like, and then from there you create an ecosystem, right? And you create this hopefully I forget the words that Yiska said, but like this kind of these beautiful narratives, and they all start with bringing viewers in. So really excited to see it, really excited to watch. I've been watching, if I'm not playing Valorant and I'm not like having to listen on a call or something like that, I've got a stream open. I'm watching. I really enjoyed the developers versus the streamers. That wasn't the most competitive thing, but it was a glimpse of what we could expect.
It's a glimpse to what's to come. It's a foreshadowing of how ridiculous some of these games are. And if you haven't seen, please watch that, because there were some pretty interesting moments that are going to expand your brain. You're gonna be like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Oh, this is crazy.
Joe, what's the weekly tournament that's not?
I believe it's called Cascade. I'll give you one second. Cascade Leagues Weekly Cup North America #1. You can find that at liquipedia.net/Valorant. Go up to the top middle / left side of your screen. There should be a tournament tab. It's separated between ongoing, upcoming, and completed. And I think that's like the first inklings of these weekly tournaments, akin to some of the Alienware monthly melees for any old Overwatch heads that were around at that time. This is the start of the esports churn. We're going to see more of these pop up. We're going to see a team or an organization like Faceit come in and say, hey, we're going to put on a one-time thing. I wouldn't be surprised to see Beyond the Summit. I hope Beyond the Summit comes into Valorant, because that would be fantastic. They do some incredible content with probably some of the lowest budget I've ever seen, and blow everybody out of the park. I just thought of
Take
that. Yeah.
TV, right?
Oh, I'd love for Take to come in and do that. Do
Yeah.
something for Europe. Like,
Oh yeah,
it would be
so
beautiful.
close to it too, dude. 100% there. Catch me there.
It's an interesting. It's a very fun time to be an esports fan. Valorant is going to be very big. It's going to pop off. It's already started, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So big ups.
Yeah, boy.
All right. Well, I think on that positive note, I think we're going to go ahead and end the show. It was a fun one. Number one in the books. And
see you at 100.
Right. We're coming up there for Tactical Crouch. Thank you to everybody who hung out with us in chat today, by the way. We hope you enjoyed it. If there's things that you want us to talk about, you have ideas. I think this week was very much a foundational show, right? We're not going to talk about how was your beta experience this week, next week. We're not going to do that. We have a lot of great plans, I think, to get into some more strategic content and competitive content. And as the competitive scene grows out, we can dedicate more time to it. We're going to dedicate more time on it to like the show. And what we really like, and the reason why Tactical Crouch is formatted the way it is because that's what we like talking about. And that's the way we like talking about it. And, eventually the goal is that we speak to it a little bit more like that. But until that scene kind of grows out, we might be talking more in hypotheticals and in strategery as we wait for everybody else to catch up, if you know what I'm saying. So, I really do appreciate everybody hanging out and having hopefully a good time. Make sure to follow the show right here, twitch.tv/KickedTripod, twitter.com/SpikeDrop, or on our brand new YouTube, bit.ly/SpikeDropYT. Especially that YouTube channel. We're going to be posting a lot more supplemental content beyond just the show itself. I'm not going to share exactly what's going to be coming there, but just do us a favor. Go to that link, subscribe, and when we start posting things, you'll be the first to know. We're really excited about it. We've been really excited to do this show for a long time and start making Valorant content. Week 1 has me super optimistic about the choice. There's new esports come and go, or new competitive games come and go. And there's always, every time a potentially big new game gets announced, there's always this like content creator itch of like, is this the one? Is this the one? Is this the one we're going to? And since Overwatch, I haven't answered yes to that itch until Valorant. And that's really exciting for me. I'm hoping it's really excited for you guys as well.
Most definitely.
Does Katie know you have a side chick?
she's okay with it. She's in beta too, so she's got one too.
Sweet.
Sweet. So with that, let's go ahead and sign off. For me, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. That's also where you can find our other show, Tactical Crouch. So go check that out if you like Overwatch and competitive Overwatch esports. Otherwise, everything else is KickedTripod. Joe, shout outs for the week, and where can people find you?
You can find me on all the socials at Volamel. That's VOLAMEL. For those who aren't familiar, I'm primarily an esports or an Overwatch esports writer and journalist, kind of charting the history and stories of some of these players. But I will be creating content around Valorant and the history of these players as well, and kind of getting in on the ground floor with that and talking about these weekly tournaments and these weekly cups and transitioning into the future of Valorant esports. But if you enjoy just general esports content, because it's not just Overwatch, shoot me a follow on the YouTubes and the Twitters at Volamel.
And Yiska, what about you, man? Shout outs for the week. Where can people find you?
I'm a staff writer for GG Recon, and definitely splitting my attention between Overwatch and Valorant at the moment, even maybe bursting a little bit more into the Valorant scene just to get a foothold. And you'll definitely see more of my content. Started out with a little bit more of a fun piece. I became the hunchback of Valorant, just ringing bells left and right, tab to tab.
It's so funny. Oh, he sends us screenshots of all the reactions. It is so hilarious.
And then, I've a tier list now in place, which I will eventually agent tier list, which I will keep up to date once tournament data rolls in, and look at the numbers there, and like general feasibility, talking to experts, talking to coaches from these teams, and also like teams that are currently scrimming. We'll definitely look in towards getting some inside information how what concepts developed during scrims, which I'll be sitting in. And yeah, generally, if you want to follow my content, my personal Twitter account is at Yiska out. That is YISKAOUT. And yeah, otherwise, just check that out. Check out Spike Drop. We'll be here every week, Friday. For me, it's 9 p.m. It's noon on the West Coast. And what time is it for you?
3 o'clock EST.
3 o'clock, yes.
3 p.m. Yep.
Yep. That's where you can find us. Thank you again, everybody who have just been kind of hanging out, chilling, supporting us through creating a brand new project, right? And we're really excited about it. Spike Drop everywhere. If you're looking for it on the audio RSS feeds, it's on Spotify now. Everywhere else, it's going to take about a week or so to get approved, especially with coronavirus. I didn't anticipate that when I submitted the feeds, and they're like, normally it takes 3 to 4 days, and it's now going to be 7 to 10. So sorry about that, but you can still get it on YouTube. You can get it on YouTube, you can get it on Twitch, and you can get it on Spotify immediately. So big thank you again. We're going to be right back for a brief post show right after the music.